Greetings and welcome to Health News and Views, Food, the Final Frontier. Thanks for stopping by. I am your host, Lynn Pete. Well, in this episode, we're going to be discussing the topic of meat, and it'll be done in two parts. This is part one of two. We'll look at the industry, the benefits of meat consumption, or the health hazards of meat consumption. And finally, let's explore the most recently adopted plant-based and lab meat alternatives that are gaining space at the supermarket. But before all of that, we have our disclaimer that says that the subject matter provided on this podcast or any of our other published documents is for informational purposes only. Food, the Final Frontier, and our partner, Health News and Views, we do not attempt to treat, diagnose, or cure any disease or condition. Always check with your healthcare provider before making any lifestyle, dietary, or prescription drug changes. But first, here's some food facts. Meat consumption in the United States was actually on a decline in the early part of 2000. But then by 2015, there seems to be an increase in the amount of meat that Americans were consuming. And it's been like that ever since. We've reached 264 pounds of meat consumption per person since 2020. Only China consumes more meat than Americans, coming in at 300 pounds per person per year. That's a lot. Well, the meat of choice, taking top billing in the supermarket, according to the USDA, that's the United States Department of Agriculture, the meat set that is taking top billing is chicken. Americans, on average, will eat a record 98.3 pounds of chicken per person this year, and chicken consumption is nearly twice that of beef and pork. Chicken outpaced pork way back in 1984 and has surpassed beef as America's favorite meat back in 1991, according to the Lancaster Farming publication. Supermarket News says that 75% of the U.S. households eat chicken at least twice per week. And we eat meat for what? Okay, let's say it together. Protein. We believe that that's the only source for a lot of people believe that's the only source to get protein. A 4-ounce beef steak or chicken breast or a pork chop contains about 30 grams of protein. However, there's a paradox here. The animals that we eat for protein, they themselves don't eat meat. So where do they get their protein? Well, according to Dick Gregory, he used to say, cut out the middleman, just eat what the animals are eating. The largest animals in the world are not meat eaters. An elephant, a hippopotamus, a horse, giraffe, gorillas, cows. They're all vegetarians. Crazy, right? We eat them to get the protein, but they don't eat meat. Okay. Let me carry on. Meet me at the market. That's MEAT. Meet me at the market. Have you heard the latest? As of June of this year, 2023, the USDA has approved the use and sale of manufactured cultured meat, or AKA lab-grown meat, or lab meat. This decision makes the United States the second country after Singapore to give the okay to process, market, and sell this new form of meat. And it sparked some controversy and debate. And which camp will you choose? Well, whether you're a dyed-in-the-wool carnivore or opt for a plant-based only diet, the controversy looms in both camps. And there are pros and cons in both normal meat-producing factory farms and now laboratories that will mimic those factories, but supposedly in a more humane fashion. Well, there's ethical and environmental impacts to be concerned with of the current cattle farming, and slaughtering of the pigs, cows, and chickens has long been a concern of animal rights groups too. And even the most conscientious meat eater would be concerned about how the meat is being sourced. According to Factory Farming Awareness Coalition, 10 billion animals are slaughtered each year in the United States, and 99% of them were raised on factory farms. An additional 47 billion aquatic animals are killed each year. Well, according to PETA, which is the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, they indicate and they say in their article that when land is used to raise animals instead of crops, precious water and soil are lost. Trees are cut down to make land for grazing or factory farm sheds, and untreated animal waste pollutes rivers and streams. In fact, it has such a devastating effect on all aspects of the environment that the Union of Concerned Scientists lists meat eating as one of the biggest environmental hazards facing the earth. Well, globally, animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse gases than all of the world's transportation systems combined. How is this possible? Well, cows must eat 16 pounds of vegetation in order to convert them into 1 pound of flesh. And it takes 2,500 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of meat. But if we looked at vegetation, it only takes 25 gallons to produce a pound of wheat. Of all raw materials and fossil fuels used in the U.S., more than 1/3 are devoted to raising animals for food. A typical pig factory can generate the same amount of raw waste as a city of 12,000 people. Of all agricultural land, and think of all the land that we use for farming, it's said that 87% is now being used to raise animals for food. That's 45% of the total land mass of the United States, and about 260 million acres of U.S. forests have been cleared to create cropland to produce feed for animals raised for food. Well, the meat industry is directly responsible for 85% of all the soil erosion in the U.S. More than 80% of the corn that we grow and more than 95% of the oats are fed to livestock, according to their report. The world's cattle alone consume a quantity of food equal to the caloric needs of 8.7 billion people, and that's more than the entire human population on Earth. Well, according to World Watch Institute, roughly 2 of every 5 tons of grain produced in the world is fed to livestock, poultry, or fish. Decreasing the consumption of these products, especially beef, could free up massive quantities of grain and reduce the pressure on the land. So are there ethical and environmental concerns? I would say yes. When it comes to lab meat, similar concerns are raised, though, and we will delve into the process and production of and the reasons for this concern. But here are just a few, just to kind of kick around till I get back to you on this. Ethical concerns. They're saying there's ethical considerations arise from cultured meat production. Some view this as an extension of animal exploitation. They also went on to say that there's an environmental impact. Sourcing of growth mediums and potential waste management issues could still pose environmental challenges. Regulatory oversight and labeling. Who's going to ensure proper labeling and oversight? Some argue that the labeling standards should clearly differentiate between, is this the real thing or traditional, or is this the lab-grown meat, and how do we maintain a transparency for our consumers? What about the nutritional content? We'll talk about that too. It's indicated that the nutritional profile is pretty much just like the conventionally produced meat. Ensuring that it meets all of the nutritional standards is a crucial aspect of the safety evaluation. What about potential health risks? Well, including concerns about unforeseen contaminants or health effects from the growth medium used to culture the meat. It could be a potential health risk. What about the long-term effects? As this technology is relatively new, there's a limited long-term data available on the health effects of regularly consuming lab-grown meat. Let's talk about that. In the meantime, consider the plight of these 3 species, the chicken, the cow, and the pig. Stay tuned for part 2 when we discuss plant-based and lab-based meats. The ego of human ingenuity is at play here, so you be the judge. And remember, you are free to choose, but you are not free to alter the consequences of your decisions. Make it a powerful day. See you next time. Be prepared to answer.